All right, perfect. All right, today we're going over Gatsby Cloud. What we're going to cover today is we're going to go through a quick intro of just quickly the framework, the cloud, what we help get done, and then we'll go through the sign-up process. We'll connect your Git repo. We'll launch a site. Hederosa will take us through that all at the end of today. All right, so why have thousands of websites chosen Gatsby? It's really because we make the hard parts of building modern websites simpler. We bake in these four kind of pillars into our framework that allow developers to build websites of all shapes and sizes quickly, efficiently, and flexibly. So performance, security, scalability, accessibility, those are kind of the tenets. And then we throw on data sourcing on top of that. So all of that is baked in the Gatsby framework out of the box. And Gatsby, as a connection between the framework and the cloud, we make it simple for developers and marketers to build amazing websites. So it's not just all about kind of the code and developer experience, but it's the total experience between the developer that needs to build the website and the marketer that needs to understand both how it works so they can ask for features and be like just updating content quickly. So here, content authors are able to write content in their favorite CMS. It has a WYSIWYG, it works easily. Markdown is a great choice for solutions that maybe a developer is more in tune with. But I think that every marketer really wants to have a CMS to easily insert content. And then with that, we kind of couple that with a templating language, and that's what Gatsby is built on built on the React framework. And you can see here we have these titles, title, description, and they correspond over here. So you can easily see the title, description, CTA that we'll see in the next slide. That shows up. And Gatsby takes all that information and we build this beautiful site. We display it in a statically generated way or in a server-side rendered way now with Gatsby 4. But it creates this incredibly fast website rather than the monolithic setup that maybe you've had before with the CMS. So build time, runtime, somewhere in between. This is what we're talking about before with once the website is built and all of that goodness is done. So the content is there, the development is done, they have the layouts, they have styles. Now we have to choose which way we want to render our content, whether that's static site generation, that's the fastest possible performance we'll get. We'll put most of the tax on the build time. So builds may take a few minutes in pure static site generation without incremental builds. Then we have deferred static generation, which is this really new way of rendering content in a hybrid manner. So the content itself is when it gets requested by the first user, it comes in an SSR manner. Once that user requests that first deferred piece of content, it's going to be statically deployed for the rest of that content's life until it's updated again. So it's this really nice hybrid way. And then lastly, server-side rendering. This is kind of the new expanse of Gatsby 4. It allows us to dynamically build pages, content on the fly during runtime. So it just gives us a little bit more of that flexibility across the two. And then what we'll really go over today is that Gatsby framework on the Gatsby Cloud. So we'll go through creating our website, collaborating with pull request previews, but really CMS previews today, and then showing how they're delivered on our CDN. So Gatsby.io, even without a custom domain, gets deployed on an edge network. You can see how incredibly fast that is. And then lastly, just organizing your sites. We'll look through the dashboard, see how you can add multiple workspaces in one, and kind of have that nice workflow with either your own internal site or with a client site. All right, those are all slides. Hederosa, I will kick it over to you and we can walk through the demo.
Sure, thanks for that, Dan. You can just confirm with me that you see my screen.
I can see the dashboard.
Cool. All right, so you see login to Gatsby Cloud, right? That's what you see?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, so for the next few minutes, what I will walk through is the kind of experience you will get Once you set up an account with Gatsby, and I'll walk through how you add a site from a repository like GitHub, then I will go from there. I'll explain what I'll do next. But for now, your first step is to create a Gatsby account. Usually you'll fill up a form with your name, just your credentials. Typically, your credentials would be your email address and or your GitHub username and password. And after that's been successful, you log into Gatsby Cloud using those same credentials. So in my case, I use GitHub and I will log in with my GitHub credentials. So I'll go ahead and do that. And typically, once you get into Gatsby Cloud, you would have a workspace where you give it a name. And typically it would be empty. Right now you're seeing my workspace, which I've been working on for the last 9 months. And in this workspace, you can do a number of things. So you imagine your developer organization. Maybe this is your documentations workspace. This you could have several sites. That could be maybe your production site. This could be a test and dev. There'd be a QA site. So there you could use your workspace as a way to have various sites and organize with your or collaborate with your team. Now, if you're, let's say, an agency, you could have a workspace that belongs to a specific client, and within that workspace, you have different sites that are, maybe their production, your dev, QA, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of in a nutshell what you get when you get a Gatsby Cloud account, a workspace. Now, let's look at how to add a site. Again, it's very straightforward. The user interface will walk you through the steps, but for my case, let's go ahead and add a site. Now, there's 2 ways you can add a site, either directly from a Git repository where you have a Gatsby site already set up, or you could actually use a starter and just deploy it, just a brand new Gatsby site without you doing anything. So let's deploy from a Git repository. So I'm going to choose that. Now I'm going to go to my organization, and I have an actual site that uses Sanity. So I'm going to import that. So Sanity is one of the CMSs that we support. I think the site is called Next Web. I'm sorry. And then let's see, no support. Okay. Now, so typically what Gatsby's Cloud is looking for is this Gatsby config.js, and it looks for it. You specify the location of this config file in the root folder. And I just forgot the name. Maybe it's called Gatsby site, and it's not there, but you get the gist. You just look for your Gatsby, the folder where you have your config. And then from there, it would take all the environment variables, and then you just build your site. So that's how easy and simple it is to build the site. Now let's go into the next scenario. Okay, we have a site built already. So here I have a site that uses Contentful. And as a developer, you're typically working with different teams, and each of you may be assigned to fix bugs or add features. So what's nice with Gatsby Cloud is you can actually create, in your own environments or in GitHub, you can create your feature branch or your fix branch, and you can open pull requests. And when you do that, you open a pull request in GitHub or whatever VCS you use, you can send those pull requests to Gatsby Cloud. So you can see here in my workspace that I have various branches that is aligned to various features. So this branch is talking about, or someone's working on adding the SSR. This branch is working on inline images. And you can compare the pull request against the production site, which is a very nice way of understanding, how your feature actually is changing. So you can preview them. And then once you're happy with your pull request, you simply merge it either directly in GitHub or through your terminal, through Git locally. So that's a very nice developer collaboration workflow. The other scenario that I always encounter is, let's say as a team, you decide, hey, this current version of the site, we want to actually revert to an older version because we had a change in strategy. With Gatsby Cloud, you can actually view your production history, and you can revert to an older version. So let's say I want to revert to one that I was created December 10th. I simply click publish, and this will become the new version that will be on the production site. So that's one of the cool capabilities that you have as from a developer perspective. The other things I want to point out is, Gatsby also gives you notifications. So if you'd like to be notified when your builds are finished, or if they failed, or a pull request is completed, you can set up Gatsby Cloud to give you that via Slack, for example. And then you can also provide some access controls to your previews and builds. So if you want your previews to be under a password or a login, you can do that as well. So these are the nice and common features and capabilities you can get with Gatsby Cloud. So that's very developer centric. So now I want to shift gears and cover the content workflow. So let's imagine I'm a content creator. I'm working on this Gatsby site. It's a recipe site, and this is the current production build. And as you can see, there's some content that's missing here. We have an image and we need some text. What's nice with Gatsby, as we integrate with various content management systems, you as a content creator don't have to touch any code. You can make all your changes in your CMS. So in this case, I'm going to be using Contentful. So I'm going to go to my Contentful workspace, and this is the actual page where that content is here. We can also preview that content, which I believe is in this tab, right? This is the preview view, and you can tell it's a preview through the URL. It's got the preview. And this is the preview of what the current site looks like. So let's actually fix this. So let me add my content, which is right here. And okay, place that. Ooh, I guess I didn't copy everything. So let's do that again. So pasted that. That's the newer content. So get rid of the spaces. And let me get rid of the placeholder image, right? Add the right image. So now all of that content looks good. Nothing else needs to change. Let's actually preview this change. So what Gatsby is doing now, if we you can see it's saying it's polishing your site. If we actually look at, that's the wrong space. If we look at Gatsby Cloud in the preview section, it said, okay, the preview's done. I guess it was today right now. So let's actually take a look at that. All right, so our preview completed. So again, we're in the preview setting. We see the new content here. We see the new image. So again, as a marketer, this is awesome. I never had to write any line of code. I did everything in Contentful. Now I need to make sure my team is happy with the changes. I just copied this URL, shared with everyone, and I know they'll all love it. So let's actually publish that. So again, I'm doing everything from Contentful, not writing a single line of code. Now, if you go back to Gatsby Cloud and look at our builds, we can see that, let me just refresh my screen. We can see that the builds are probably, oh, okay. We saw that the data was updated from Contentful. It just took 5 seconds for that change, deployed at 12:18. Let's actually look at the site. So this is the new site. That's my production URL, and my changes are there. Now, what's awesome about why that was so fast was Gatsby framework actually, has this capability called incremental builds. And so it didn't have to build the entire site. It just built the changes. So one thing we can see is if you look at the logs, we can see here that, it shows that there was one new entry in Contentful and everything else was cached. So that's the reason why this was so fast. Gatsby knows what changed. So that's kind of cool. But the other thing I wanted to share, if you notice in my Gatsby Cloud site, you see there's two acronyms, DSG and SSR. And Dan spoke about these new rendering methods that we have. So with Gatsby 4, you can now defer some pages. So this site actually incorporates deferred static generation in the, let's take a look at that, in the blog section. So this is the blog page. Everything that is dated before June 25 is all deferred. So my fourth post, nutrition, third post, these are all deferred. So if you notice when I click on it initially, it, depending on your network, it may be a little slow because it wasn't built. But once it is rendered from the server side, then it'll be cached and it'll serve very fast. In terms of how that is implemented, I just want to show how that is implemented. Basically, this is my template for the blogs. The way the DSG or deferred static generation is implemented is using this function config asynchronously, sorry. And I basically have a GraphQL query here where I query my blog post, and I put a date here as a filter so that I can say that anything older than June 25, which I set here, you defer. So that's how it's set up, pretty simple. And so that this is basically the deferred method. The other component or the other feature is static server-side rendering. So with server-side rendering, basically Gatsby's able to grab content dynamically. So this particular page under the new navigation banner or nav bar is dynamically served. So every time you reload this page, it's going to pick up a new recipe. Now, the way, again, SSR is implemented, it's on a page basis. So I have it on this page called new recipes. And you use this get server data function and basically, hit your API, which I have. I'm using this vernacular API to get those new recipes. And pretty much this is the code to make it work. And so in a nutshell, we looked at how with Gatsby Cloud you can easily create your new site with any CMS that we support. We looked at how a developer can create features and fixes and compare that functionality via pull request with production data. And I showed how you can revert to a previous build in case you didn't want, your strategy to change. Then we went through a content workflow where, as a content person, you can make easily changes directly in your CMS and no need to write a single line of code. And last but not least, you see examples of the two new rendering methods available in Gatsby 4. So with that, I conclude this portion of the presentation. So Dan, back to you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Rosa. That was a great. I like the sanity demo.
Yeah.
You get a nice little practice site.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you next week.